hello. Oh. Hi. Come and have a seat. You could drop in again. I was just, I've been showing you all the books on the shelves, and of course you've probably noticed that quite a lot of the books, frankly, aren't on the shelves, so they're all over the place, and I mean that's the way it should be. There's a beautiful picture on my desk there of a medieval painting called The Little Paradise Garden. I'm going to do a piece of writing about the Song of Songs, so that's why that's there. Anyway, a lot of them are around, and of course gradually, I'm sure this happens to you as well, you accumulate around your reading chair the pile of books on the go, some of which are for work and some for leisure and some a combination, and you can see I'm going through Lord of the Rings again, but I've also got a couple of Owen Barfield books because I'm working on a paper for a conference at Clare College on Barfield. But you have to have something lighter, and I have here an absolute favourite. And in my opinion, in the only edition that you should have, which is the one with the original illustrations. And this, of course, is The Wind in the Willows. This is quite a late one. I mean, it's exactly as it was when it was published in 1909, I think. But this particular iteration of it is from the 90s. 1908, that's right, first published. And it's got these lovely, lovely E.H. Shepard illustrations, and there, of course, is an absolutely favourite scene. There's Ratty and Moley in the boat. Now, the reason why I've got it out and sort of on the go at the moment, I'm dipping into it, is really by way of kind of imaginative compensation for loss. It's a very small loss. I mean, in all the great woes and sorrows of this time, I mean, I scarcely feel I should mention it, but I feel it nevertheless. I love, to borrow the phrase from in here, simply messing about in boats, and I was particularly looking forward to this season because I got a lovely boat that I was going to launch for the first time on the Broads called the Ranworth Rose, and by now I would have had a month of messing about in boats and doing things, and of course it's not happened at all. So I've kind of been drawn back to the very origin of that phrase. I got my love of sailing and being in boats from both my parents, but my father was the person who first introduced that phrase to me. And when we were in a boat together when I was quite young, and he leaned forward to me quoting, but I didn't know it was a quote, and said, "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats." And I've messed about in boats with my own children and said exactly the same thing. So just for the sheer joy of it, to enter that sort of magical realm of this classic book again, I thought I'd read you a couple of very short bits. One is the moment when Moley, who's come up drawn by the warmth of the spring sunshine up from his little underground home to explore, and he first of all and for the first time in his life discovers a river, and I love rivers. We're very blessed that we have one in this village. So let me just give you that first description of the river. Yes, you listen too, George. George is not quite so keen on messing about in boats as he might be. Anyway, here we are. This is he, Moley. He thought his happiness was complete when, as he meandered aimlessly along, suddenly he stood by the edge of a full-fed river. Never in his life had he seen a river before. This sleek, sinuous, full-bodied animal, chasing and chuckling, gripping things with a gurgle and leaving them with a laugh, to fling itself on fresh playmates that shook themselves free and were caught and held again. All was a shake and a shiver, glints and gleams and sparkles, rustle and swirl, chatter and bubble. The mole was bewitched, entranced, fascinated. By the side of the river he trotted as one trots when very small, by the side of a man who holds one spellbound with exciting stories. It's just fabulous writing. All the shake, a shiver, the glints and gleams. And then think of the vocabulary that was being given us when we were really quite little children. Mole was bewitched. Well, that's where a poorer writer would have stopped. But Kenneth Grahame, Mole was bewitched, entranced, fascinated. Words which have continued to be immensely useful to me ever since I probably read them for the first time in this book. Anyway, you remember he goes on and eventually he meets one of the other great characters of the book, Ratty, the character with whom I perhaps most closely identify of the four great friends in this book. And Ratty, of course, is a water rat and has a boat. And there's a wonderful moment when Ratty invites Moley onto the boat, and Moley says quite casually that he's never been in a boat before. "This has been a wonderful day," said he, as the rat shoved off and took the sculls again. "Do you know, I've never been in a boat before in all my life." "What?" cried the rat, open-mouthed. "Never been in a... You'd never... Well, What have you been doing then?" "Is it so nice as all that?" asked the mole shyly, though he was quite prepared to believe it as he leant back in his seat and surveyed the cushions, the oars, the rowlocks, and all the fascinating things, and felt the boat sway lightly under him. "Nice? It's the only thing," said the water rat solemnly as he leant forward for his stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily, "messing about in boats, messing—" "Look ahead, Rat!" cried the mole suddenly. It was too late. The boat struck the bank full tilt. The dreamer, the joyous oarsman, lay on his back at the bottom of the boat with his heels in the air. "About in boats or with boats," the rat went on, composedly, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In 'em or out of 'em, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems really to matter. That's the charm of it. Whether you get away or whether you don't. Whether you arrive at your destination or whether you reach somewhere else. Or whether you never get anywhere at all. You're always busy. You're never doing anything in particular. And when you've done it, there's always something else to do. And you can do it if you like, but you'd much better not. Look here. If you've really nothing else on hand this morning, supposing we drop down the river together and have a long day of it." Oh, joyous, and every word of that is so true. The pleasure of being afloat itself, it not mattering whether you actually get anywhere or whether you arrive or whether you go or whether you just stay and potter about on the boat itself. It's a very beautiful vision of a certain kind of sheer, delightful leisure. And all of it buoyant and supported, because you're buoyant and supported on the water, and I suppose that's the thing that I miss most. There's a phrase saying, "Whatever floats your boat." Well, what floats my boat is quite simply being afloat in my boat, and I hope that someday, soon, maybe even in this season, I will be. Thanks for indulging me and letting me read a favourite passage. See you.